Imagine walking down the street and you see two people locked in just this bloody physical fistfight.
Wow, okay, setting a scene right off the bat.
Yeah, right. So you run over to break it up. And as you're pulling them apart, you realize they're fighting to the death over a debate.
A debate? Like over what?
Over whether a fresh rose or a pile of dog feces smells better.
Oh, wow. That sounds utterly absurd.
Completely absurd. But according to the philosophy we are unpacking today, you and I actually participate in a version of that exact same brawl, like every single day.
We do. We just, we dress it up in much more sophisticated vocabulary.
No.
We use data, we use historical precedents, moral frameworks. But the underlying mechanics of our most frustrating arguments, they are shockingly similar to that street fight.
They really are. And welcome to this deep dive, by the way. Today we are exploring a translated philosophical essay. It's by Shu Feng, dated January 31st, 2024, and it was edited by Kinyu.
Yes, and the title alone is, wow, it's fascinating.
Oh, it's a massive provocation, especially to anyone who prides themselves on being logical. It's called Those Who Argue About Reason Do Not Understand It.
Which just sounds so counterintuitive.
Right, exactly. So our mission today is to figure out why this text claims that trying to make someone see your reasoning is, well, it's actually a fundamental misunderstanding of how human beings operate.
Right.
We're going to look at the biology of perspective, ancient human debates, corporate paralysis, and finally, this really radical shortcut the essay offers for avoiding conflict in your own life.
It's a game changer, honestly.
It is. So for everyone out there listening who is just tired of hitting a brick wall in their arguments, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it. It's easy to assume that when a disagreement reaches a stalemate, one party is simply, failing to process the facts.
Right, like they just aren't getting it.
Exactly. We think of logic as this universal language, but to truly grasp why humans get locked into these unresolvable debates, we actually need to strip away all the complex layers of human intellect first.
And the essay does exactly that.
Right. It starts at the most basic, instinctual level of disagreement, which takes us right back to your opening scenario.
Yeah, so Feng opens the text with this story about a bee and a fly. And they get into a literal fight over what smells best.
A literal fight.
Yeah. The bee insists, with absolute certainty, that the most delicious thing in the world is the fragrance of flowers.
Naturally.
Right. And the fly completely rejects this, retorting that the most fragrant thing in the world is dog feces. And because neither one can convince the other, they just start brawling.
What's fascinating here is the absolute purity of their disagreement. Neither insect is being stubborn.
No.
They aren't ignoring empirical data or falling victim to some cognitive bias. They're quote-unquote reason. Their entire metric for what is good, delicious, or valuable, it is entirely dictated by their biological architecture.
Right, it's hardwired.
Exactly. A fly is hardwired to seek out waste because, well, that is where it feeds and breeds.
Gross, but true.
Yeah. And a bee is hardwired to seek out nectar to sustain the hive.
So it's less like two people looking at the same object through different colored glasses.
Right.
It's more like two completely different operating systems. Like if you try to open a modern 4K video file on a vintage 1980s computer.
Oh yeah, it's not going to work.
No, it's not just going to look a little distorted. It's going to read as complete garbage. The machine physically lacks the architecture to process that information.
That is a perfect way to put it.
You can't debate a fly into liking a rose because it literally lacks the biological hardware to derive any value from it.
And by using this sort of comical image, the essay establishes a foundational premise that really carries through the rest of the text.
Which is?
That what is undeniably, objectively true for one entity can be entirely absurd to another, based solely on their inherent design.
Okay.
The bee isn't wrong about the flower, and the fly isn't wrong about the feces, relative to their own existence.
So when we try to debate someone out of their fundamental worldview,
we are essentially the bee yelling at the fly. We think we are debating universal facts, but we are actually demanding that the other person change their internal operating system to match ours.
Man, that is bleak, honestly.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, it's easy to look at a bee and a fly and say, well, that's just biological hardwiring.
Right.
But what happens when you introduce human intellect into the mix? Do we actually transcend those base instincts, or do we just invent philosophical justifications for our own versions of nectar and feces?
Well, the text definitely suggests the latter. human beings possess a much wider array of operating systems, obviously.
Yeah, shaped by a million things.
Exactly. Genetics, upbringing, trauma, environment. We develop deeply held values that feel as biologically undeniable to us as nectar does to a bee.
And that actually brings us to the Sufeng's second story,
Yeah.
which moves away from bugs and introduces us to three humans.
Right, persons A, B, and C.
Yes. And they've been locked in a conflict for 2,000 years.
2,000 years.
Yeah, they have daily arguments, and just like our insect friends, occasional physical fights, all without a clear winner.
And calling it a 2,000-year debate, I think, highlights that these aren't just passing cultural trends. These are ancient, eternal clashes over the core pillars of human motivation.
Right. So let's look at the actual arguments they're making, because they map perfectly onto the people you and I interact with every single day.
Oh, definitely.
So person A argues that the most important thing in life is money.
The classic argument.
Right. They say money makes the impossible possible. It buys the best services, luxury houses, cars, yachts, global travel.
All a tangible reward.
Exactly. It gives people dignity. And person A even quotes this really stark saying, which is, people perish for money, birds perish for food. So to person A, earning money is life's most crucial task.
Now, if we examine the psychological framework of person A, we see a worldview grounded entirely in resource acquisition and tangible security.
Right, safety first.
Exactly. To a brain primed by perhaps a fear of scarcity or just a deep need for measurable control, everything else is secondary. Emotional bonds or abstract truths cannot physically protect you from a winter storm or a medical emergency.
But capital can.
Capital can. So within that framework, their internal logic is totally ironclad.
But then person B aggressively counters this. Person B says, no, money is basically dung, and that affection is the most important thing in life.
The total opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, they argue that where there is affection, you get warmth, peace, flourishing love, century-long marriages.
Beautiful things.
Right. And without it, you get chaos, destroyed families, and lives lost in an instant. Person B uses this striking comparison. They say money without affection is a haunting ghost, but affection without money is a divine deity.
The mechanism driving person B is just entirely different from A. This is an operating system optimized for social cohesion.
And emotional resonance, right?
Yeah, exactly. To person B, the ultimate threat isn't starvation, it's isolation. So a haunting ghost perfectly describes how a highly empathetic brain views wealth without love. It's cold, it's empty, and it's terrifying.
While a divine deity implies that human connection offers, like, salvation, even in total poverty.
Right.
And just when A and B are going at it, person C interjects. Person C says the most important thing is neither money nor affection.
Here comes the philosopher.
Yeah, exactly. It's the pursuit of truth. Truth enlightens the mind, keeps you on the right path, enriches the heart, and leads to a brighter future.
Yeah.
But, okay, here is where I have to push back a little on the essay's premise.
Okay, let's hear it.
Isn't there an objective hierarchy of needs? I mean, can't we objectively say that the pursuit of profound philosophical truth or the fostering of deep human affection is just morally superior to hoarding cash so you can buy yachts?
I mean, it's completely natural to want to rank them, right? You, the listener, are probably identifying with one of these three right now.
Oh, for sure.
And you might feel this defensive urge to justify why your choice is the quote-unquote best one. But Shufameng isn't making a moral judgment here.
Really? None at all.
No. The text illustrates that within each person's specific worldview, their logic is flawless.
Even the person just trying to buy yachts.
Within their framework, absolutely. If your primary lens for navigating reality is measurable power and physical safety, then prioritizing money is a completely rational deduction.
Right. If you plug the variables into their specific calculator, it spits out the right answer.
Exactly. The 2,000-year stalemate happens because they are continually trying to cross-apply their internal reason to someone else's totally different value system.
Oh, wow.
Think about the last time you tried to explain to your parents why you took a lower-paying job for better mental health.
Oh, man. Yeah.
You were speaking the language of affection or truth, and they were terrified because they only speak the language of money and security.
Because to them, money is love. Money is safety.
Right. You were never going to convince them because their operating system literally cannot process emotional fulfillment as a valid substitute for a 401k.
So they aren't fighting because their debate skills are weak. They're fighting because person A is presenting this perfectly formatted spreadsheet to person B, who is trying to read it as a poem.
That's a great way to put it. It's impossible.
Now, while endless philosophical debates about whether money, affection, or truth is supreme are, fascinating to think about, Xi next story drops this exact problem directly into a high-stakes practical setting.
Because eventually philosophical debates have to manifest in action.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't just argue about abstract concepts in a vacuum. We argue about what to actually do next.
Yeah.
So I moved to the boardroom for this one. The text describes a company where the chairman, the general manager, and the secretary are fighting, and it's putting the entire company's prospects in jeopardy.
A very real-world scenario.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The chairman looks at the market and makes a hard demand. He says, sell all the company's stocks immediately.
Now, the chairman's internal reason is flashing a red alert. They are prioritizing loss aversion, right? They're trying to mitigate an existential threat to the company.
But the general manager completely objects. The GM argues that it's a bull market. This is a golden opportunity to make a massive profit, so they absolutely cannot sell.
So the GM's internal reason is calibrated for growth and maximizing opportunity. Just like the chairman, their logic is completely sound-based on the metrics they are prioritizing.
And then the secretary steps in and tries to play both sides, which, predictably, just adds fuel to the fire.
Of course.
The secretary agrees with the GM, arguing that the economic crisis hasn't hit yet and there is still profit to be made.
Right.
But in the exact same breath, the secretary waffles and warns about those obvious massive threats everyone tends to ignore until it's too late. The classic gray rhinos.
Oh, yeah.
And the totally unpredictable, rare catastrophes that blindside markets, the black swans. Because of these, the secretary suggests it might actually be wise to sell now.
The secretary represents that very human urge to validate everyone's perspective.
Oh, we all do it, trying to keep the peace.
We do. But this raises a critical point about how we handle conflicting realities in practice. Attempting to accommodate everyone's reason actually makes the situation exponentially worse.
It's like being in a car where the driver is slamming the gas because they see an open highway, the passenger's pulling the emergency brake because they see a cliff.
Right.
And the GPS is telling you that both the highway and the cliff are real. The car is just going to tear itself apart.
That analogy perfectly captures the danger of validation without direction. I mean, compromise is only valuable when it leads to a unified path forward.
Otherwise, it's just paralysis.
Exactly. The chairman and the GM have distinct, fiercely opposed reasons. By validating both simultaneously, the secretary isn't solving the debate, they are paralyzing the organization. A company, just like an individual's life, requires forward momentum. If you stop everything to litigate whose internal reasoning is objectively superior, the market just moves on without you.
The opportunity evaporates.
Yeah, or the crash hits while you are still standing around a whiteboard arguing.
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, for the listener right now, thinking about their own team, their family, their personal projects.
Right.
If everyone has a valid point, if the bee, the fly, person A, B, C, the chairman, and the GM are all operating on flawless internal logic, how do we ever actually make a decision?
It's the million-dollar question.
Yeah. How do we avoid driving our own projects into the ground while we just argue endlessly about who is right?
Answering that requires a complete paradigm shift in how we view the very purpose of reasoning.
Which brings us to Swething's core thesis and the surprisingly pragmatic solution he offers to break this endless stalemate.
Right.
The text reveals his ultimate conclusion, and it starts with a blanket statement. It says, the bee, the fly, persons A, B, and C, the chairman, the GM, the secretary, they are all right.
Everyone is right.
Everyone in the world has their own reason, and everyone's reason is right.
That is a deeply unsettling concept for anyone who believes in absolute objective truth in human affairs.
We naturally want there to be a single correct answer to these debates.
We crave it.
But Xu drops the hammer here. He says that if you want others to accept your reason, it just proves that you don't understand reason.
If you want others to accept your reason, it proves you don't understand reason. I mean, this is the pivot point of the whole text.
It's powerful.
It reveals a profound paradox. Reason, in the context of human values and decisions, is deeply subjective. It is a byproduct of your unique biology, your lived experiences, your specific traumas, your triumphs.
Your own personal operating system.
Exactly. Therefore, the moment you demand someone else adopt your subjective reality as their own, you are demonstrating total ignorance about what reason actually is.
Wow.
You are treating a highly personalized subjective tool as if it were an objective weapon.
The revelation the text offers is this. We should not impose our own reason, but simply, quote, let our own qualities shine.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about shifting the energy of an argument from coercion to demonstration.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Instead of exhausting yourself trying to dismantle someone else's operating system, you simply embody your own values to the best of your ability.
Well, I have to be honest, letting your qualities shine sounds lovely, but it's a really tough pill to swallow in practice.
Why is that?
Letting go of the need to be right means swallowing your pride and letting someone else drive the car off the cliff as long as it's their car.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Right. If I see a friend making a terrible life-ruining mistake, or if that boardroom is about to bankrupt the company, sitting back and just shining feels almost negligent. It feels, I don't know, passive.
It feels passive only if you equate caring with controlling.
Oh, that's a good point.
Letting your quality shine doesn't mean you stay silent. You still present your best argument, you share your perspective, you offer whatever data you have.
Right, you still participate.
Yes. But the crucial difference is detachment. You detach from the ego-driven need to force the other person to agree with you. You stop trying to hijack their internal logic.
But someone still has to make the final choice,
Yeah.
right? The stocks have to be sold or kept. The car has to turn left or right.
Yes. And that is exactly where the essay provides its ultimate pragmatic solution to avoid the quarrels, arguments, and fights caused by reasoning.
Let's hear it.
The rule is incredibly simple, but profoundly difficult for our egos to accept. Whoever is responsible, whoever bears the consequences, they have the final say.
Whoever bears the consequences, they have the final say.
The brilliance of this conclusion is that it shifts the entire framework of decision-making from who is objectively correct to who owns the outcome.
Wow.
It replaces a system of endless philosophical debate with a system of absolute accountability.
That completely rewires how you look at the boardroom dispute.
Doesn't it?
Suddenly, it doesn't matter if the chairman's fear of a crash is philosophically superior to the GM's optimism about the bull market.
Not at all.
The only question that matters is, whose head is on the chopping block if the company goes bankrupt?
Exactly. If the chairman is the one who will lose their livelihood, face the furious shareholders, and carry the legal burden of a failure, then the chairman's reason wins.
Period.
Not because it is the undeniable truth of the universe, but because they are the one paying the bill for the consequence.
And conversely, if the general manager is the one whose entire career and compensation are tied to hitting growth targets,
Right.
and they are the one taking the fall, if profits stagnate, then their reason wins.
It cuts through the deadlock instantly. It acknowledges a hard truth because we can never truly align our internal realities because the bee and the fly will never agree on what smells good. We need an external practical mechanism to move forward.
And accountability is that mechanism.
Accountability is the mechanism.
Think about what this means for a team project.
Yeah.
You know, if you and a coworker are arguing over a design direction and you feel like you are hitting that brick wall,
Yeah, we've all been there.
the way to stop the argument isn't to build a better PowerPoint presentation.
No.
The way to stop is to clarify who actually owns the failure of this project. If it's your coworker's project, you let your qualities shine. You give them your absolute best advice and your strongest warnings. But then you step back.
Because they bear the consequence.
Exactly. They bear the consequence, so they get the final say.
You surrender the addiction to being right in exchange for peace and forward progress. It respects their agency, and just as importantly, it protects your energy.
I love that. Protects your energy. So let's summarize this deep dive, because this is a fundamental shift in how we interact with the world.
We covered an immense amount of psychological ground, starting from pure instinct and moving all the way to organizational leadership.
We did. From the biological hardwiring of the bee and the fly fighting over nectar and feces, to the ancient 2,000-year battle between the paradigms of money, affection, and truth. We saw how those differing operating systems cause boardroom brawls that threaten to paralyze entire companies. Zhu Feng's essay teaches us that reason is inherently subjective. It is a product of who and what we are.
And realizing that subjectivity changes everything. Trying to force your logic onto others doesn't make you a great debater. It exposes a fundamental misunderstanding of how deeply personal truth really is.
Right. The ultimate tiebreaker in life isn't logic. It isn't who has the slickest argument, the most data, or the loudest voice. It's accountability.
Yes.
Whoever bears the consequences has the final say.
It's a grounding philosophy that stops the endless spinning and allows us to actually move forward.
So for you, the listener, as you carry this back into your daily life, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Something to chew on.
Exactly. We've talked extensively about how this applies to work and abstract debates, but consider your most intimate personal relationships.
Oh, that's where it gets real.
It does. Think about the advice you give to the people you love. If the ultimate rule for resolving conflicts is that the person bearing the consequences gets the final say, how does this completely change the way we counsel our friends?
Right.
Or how we judge leaders and family members who make decisions we fundamentally disagree with? If you are not the one who will lie awake at night bearing the weight of those consequences, do you really have the right to argue the reason?
That's a powerful question.
The next time you find yourself slamming into that brick wall of an argument, take a step back and ask yourself, who is actually paying the price for this decision? You might just find that the wall isn't yours to break down after all.